Welcome, seekers and gentle wanderers of both the inner and outer cosmos. Wherever you find yourself tonight, maybe cocooned in the warmth of your favorite chair, quietly gazing out a city window, or settling beneath a softly glowing lamp, I want to welcome you, not just as a listener, but as a fellow observer of the strangeness and beauty woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. Tonight, as the world outside quiets and our thoughts slow, you are invited into a space that's gentle, safe, and unhurried. Let your mind soften its edges. You don't need to grasp or remember everything here. You are welcome to simply rest, to let your curiosity flow naturally and effortlessly, like a river guided by the moon. How are you feeling right now? Pause and notice just for a moment. Where in the world are you listening from? Are you seeking answers, peace, or simply a pause in the busy currents of your week? No matter what brought you here, know that you belong, and that these moments are yours to enjoy without pressure. This gathering is for those who feel called to self-discovery, for those who sense the world is stranger and richer than it sometimes appears. Together, we gently stretch our minds across the vastness of the quantum universe and the even more mysterious terrain of our own consciousness. In this calm, wonder-filled hour, we're not chasing perfection or rushing towards some imagined endpoint. We're here to relax, to be inspired, to grow in subtle, powerful ways, and to gaze at the riddles of our minds as gently as one gazes at stars. Tonight, we begin an exploration that is part personal growth, part quantum enigma, and part invitation to see reality through a new, softly shimmering lens. Our focus, the strange, almost invisible crisis that unfolds inside so many of us right in the middle of the week. A confidence blackout that feels as if the very core of who you are has been quietly hijacked. You start the week strong, perhaps even radiant. Monday, you're the protagonist of your own story, confident and in control. And then midweek arrives. Something shifts. You catch your own reflection in a passing window, and it's as if you're watching a stranger. You find yourself hesitating, doubting, even wondering who's really steering the ship of your life. The version of yourself you trusted just days ago seems to dissolve into mist, replaced by uncertainty. Why does this happen? And who or what lurks behind the curtain, pulling the levers of your identity? Is it possible that what you call yourself is less stable than you think? Can a quantum lens reveal that your identity isn't a fixed thing, but a shimmering field of probabilities? One that sometimes collapses, right on cue, into a version of you that feels utterly out of sync with your intentions? Tonight, together, we enter the quiet storm at the heart of selfhood. You are invited to observe, to question, and to gently unsettle what you thought you knew about who you are. There is no pressure to solve every puzzle. The universe, after all, thrives on mystery. All that's needed is your relaxed attention and a willingness to see the ordinary in an extraordinary light. This is not just a conversation about self-improvement or productivity. This is about waking up, in the middle of your own life, to the possibility that reality is stranger, more fluid, and more dazzlingly complex than your habitual thoughts allow. Each week, so many people experience an eerie midweek confidence crash. It's as if a hidden hand gently, but inexorably, turns down the brightness of their internal sun. They move through their routines on autopilot, haunted by a quiet sense of being out of place within their own skin. What if this is not a personal flaw, but a symptom of deeper patterns? Patterns that hint at a cosmic-level game running just beneath the surface. Tonight, you are invited to listen, not with the anxious mind that chases every detail, but with a deeper, slower awareness, a kind of relaxed vigilance, like the way you listen to waves or the hush of wind through the trees. The story we explore will unfold across 12 moments, each one a key, a doorway, a question that lingers and gently tugs you forward. Each chapter won't simply inform. It will unsettle, provoke, and invite you to step out onto the edge of what you believe to be true. And always, this journey is yours to enjoy at your own pace, without stress or judgment. We will wonder together why your confidence can soar at the week's start, only to quietly dissolve midweek. We will gaze, without flinching, at the possibility that identity itself is not a fortress, but a shifting landscape, a pattern in motion, as delicate and elusive as quantum particles blinking in and out of existence. You'll learn to spot the invisible cracks in your self-narrative, to question the subtle handoffs of control that happen when you're not looking, and to witness the quiet handshakes between consciousness and the quantum field. This isn't just for the mind, but for the soul, the part of you that yearns for wonder, for mystery, for a glimpse behind the veil. Throughout this conversation, you may find old assumptions gently falling away. That's welcome here. There is no need to fix, explain, or justify. Only the invitation to look softly and deeply at the patterns that shape your days, and to ask the questions that have no easy answers. The questions that, when left open, have the power to transform you from within. You can expect a journey that is calm yet thrilling, gentle yet filled with sharp flashes of curiosity. We will walk through paradoxes. We will linger at the threshold of reality's glitches and allow ourselves to feel, if only for a moment, the awe of being conscious in a universe that may itself be conscious. Throughout, I encourage you to let go of any sense of getting it right. The mysteries are not puzzles to solve, but landscapes to walk through, together. If you feel moved to share where you're listening from, or what questions are whispering in your own mind tonight, you are warmly invited to do so. Let this be a gathering of gentle explorers, each bringing a unique spark to the collective wonder we create together. You are safe here. You are valued exactly as you are. So, as you settle in, allow your breath to deepen and your mind to slow. Feel the boundaries of your day dissolve into a quiet anticipation. The story is about to begin, not with answers, but with questions that shimmer and unsettle. The kind of questions that, like moonlight on water, reveal how much more there is to see. Tonight, our journey opens with a mystery at the very heart of our weekly rhythms. Why do you wake up on Wednesday feeling like an imposter in your own story, when Monday you were the hero? What's hijacking your identity halfway through the week? And why can't you see it happening? Let us step together, softly, into the shadows and the light of this question. You are not alone here. The universe is wide, and so is the realm within you. Let's begin. You begin the week almost as if enchanted. Energy courses through you, strong and clear, guiding you through tasks and conversations, setting a bright tone for the days ahead. Monday feels like the first page of a new story, where you are both author and hero, confident, assured, and firmly in command of your trajectory. But then, something inexplicable happens. By the time Wednesday quietly slips into your calendar, the atmosphere changes. Your steps grow heavier, your mind wanders in new directions, and the certainty that was so natural just days before begins to slip through your fingers. The world itself seems subtly different. What once felt like your story now feels like a script you're reading for the first time, written in someone else's hand. This sensation, so familiar, yet never truly understood, raises a disturbing question. You felt unstoppable just 48 hours ago. So who or what drains your power right on schedule, as if your downfall is pre-programmed? Notice the rhythm. It's too precise to ignore, too common to dismiss as mere chance. Each week, the crash seems to arrive right on time, as if responding to a signal you cannot hear. The energy you trusted on Monday becomes a memory. You may find yourself repeating actions with no sense of connection. Your voice sounds quieter, your ideas less certain. It's as if an invisible force slips into the control room of your life, pulling levers and turning dials without your permission. What is this force? It isn't stress, not entirely. It isn't fatigue in the ordinary sense. Even on weeks with enough rest and pleasant routines, the pattern persists. It resists easy explanations. In the stillness of a quiet moment, you might wonder if the universe itself is trying to reveal something about the nature of control, of selfhood, of the invisible scripts running beneath the surface of consciousness. This phantom collapse, as it comes to be known, is more than a drop in mood or motivation. It's a shifting of something fundamental, a change in who's behind the wheel. The persona you wore at the week's start quietly vanishes, replaced by a version of you that's more hesitant, more easily swayed by circumstance. It's as if your very sense of agency flickers and then recedes, leaving behind questions that echo with a kind of cosmic disquiet. The mind seeks explanations, Perhaps it whispers about willpower as if it's a fuel tank that simply runs low, or about discipline as a muscle that grows tired. But these metaphors, comforting as they might be, fail to account for the eerie precision of the collapse. If it were only about energy, then wouldn't rest or routine bring stability? Instead, the crash seems to obey rules of its own, as if orchestrated by a hidden intelligence within or perhaps beyond you. And here, the quantum world offers a mirror. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in states of pure potential, coexisting possibilities that collapse into a single outcome only when observed. Could it be that your own sense of self operates according to similar laws, remaining fluid and bright only as long as you believe yourself to be in charge, only to collapse into uncertainty the moment your focus wavers? These moments of sudden weakness, of lost willpower, are not just inconvenient, they are invitations. Invitations to question whether your sense of control is as real as it seems, or whether it is a carefully maintained illusion that serves a deeper, possibly hidden purpose. What if your weekly collapse is not a personal failing, but an expression of something woven into the fabric of consciousness itself? Something that waits, patiently, for your attention to drift, then steps forward and quietly takes your place. And so the question lingers, unresolved and quietly troubling. Who or what pulls the strings when your willpower evaporates? Are you truly the author of your week, or is your story being written by hands you cannot see? This is not a question to answer quickly. It is a riddle to sit with, to allow its discomfort to open new ways of seeing yourself and your life. Next, we will move into the heart of this riddle. The story grows stranger. If confidence is so real, why does it expire every Tuesday night? Are you borrowing strength that was never yours, or is time itself rewriting who you are? The pattern is deeper, and the mystery, far from resolved, now tugs at the very edges of your sense of reality. The clock ticks in ordinary silence, yet beneath the surface, something far more mysterious is unfolding. Every week, as Tuesday night fades and the midweek threshold approaches, an invisible shift takes place inside you. A quiet vanishing act that leaves your strongest self on the wrong side of time's divide. The question, so simple yet so sharp, pierces through the week's routine. If confidence is so real, why does it expire every Tuesday night? Are you borrowing strength that was never yours, or is time itself rewriting who you are? The days cycle on, and you notice an unsettling law. The version of you that begins the week, a version radiant with plans and purpose, seems to flicker out as soon as the week's gravity intensifies. Monday's self is vibrant, decisive, almost immune to doubt. But that clarity evaporates in the twilight hours of Tuesday, replaced by hesitation, uncertainty, a sense that the ground beneath your feet has quietly shifted. The mystery deepens. Is this simply fatigue, the predictable arc of motivation, or does it reveal a far stranger principle, one that plays out not just in your life but in the architecture of time itself? What is it about the structure of the week that quietly drains your brightest energies? Why does the strongest you, so alive just hours before, possess the briefest lifespan, as if it's only permitted to exist at the edge of every cycle? Perhaps the answer hides in the nature of identity itself, a pattern so delicate and so responsive that it bends and warps according to unseen rhythms. In quantum physics, particles can occupy superpositions, being in multiple states at once, until a boundary, a measurement and act of attention, collapses them into a single form. In a similar way, could your own selfhood exist in overlapping states, and does the routine of the week act as an invisible observer, forcing you to collapse into a single, more limited version as the days wear on? You remember how, on Monday, your intentions are clear and your voice rings true. The world feels bright and within reach. But as Tuesday passes, the edges blur. Small doubts creep in. The certainty that once felt so natural is replaced by a quiet, gnawing sense that something precious has slipped away. You might try to summon the energy you felt at the start, but it now seems strangely inaccessible, like a dream remembered only in fragments. You chase after the ghost of your earlier self, but it's as if that version of you lived in another timeline, one you can glimpse but never quite return to. The pattern is too precise, too eerily predictable to be dismissed as chance. If you listen closely, you sense the week itself acting as a stage, ushering in different versions of yourself with clockwork regularity. The midweek crash does not merely rob you of confidence. It exposes the unsettling truth that your sense of self is not as permanent as you believed. Is this a flaw or a feature? Are you meant to recycle through multiple identities, each with its own strength and vulnerability? Or are you leaking time, bleeding away the energy that could have been yours, if only you could hold on to it? The mind scrambles for explanations. Perhaps it's the accumulation of stress, the hidden costs of productivity, the ways small failures pile up in the background. But the timing remains suspiciously exact. It's as though you're borrowing confidence on credit, and the bill comes due by Wednesday. Was the strength you claimed at the start ever truly yours, or were you living on a borrowed identity, one designed to expire, ensuring you never get too comfortable within your own power? And so, you're left with a haunting realization. The strongest self, the one you most wish to inhabit, is also the most fleeting. You're left chasing shadows through the corridors of your week, wondering whether your true power lies not in possessing strength, but in learning to navigate the strange, shifting landscape of your own timelines. Each Tuesday night becomes a kind of quantum gate, a point where old energy is siphoned off and a new pattern takes hold. What would happen if you could observe this shift without resistance, without shame or frustration? What if the disappearance of your strongest self is not a failure, but a signal, a call to notice the deeper rules at play beneath the surface? Is there wisdom to be found in the short lifespan of confidence? Or does it point to a deeper instability in the structure of self? As the week turns and your strongest self flickers out, you're forced to confront the unanswerable. Is your power real if it cannot last? Or is reality itself conspiring to remind you that strength, like all quantum states, is transient, present only when it is observed and believed in, vanishing when attention slips? And just as the questions settle, a deeper mystery emerges, tugging at the edge of awareness. Now that you're caught in the shifting tides of self, an even stranger phenomenon appears. In those moments when your mind goes blank, when your drive dies and motivation withers, who is actually perceiving your choices? Is there a hidden observer, lurking in the shadows, sabotaging the script and quietly guiding your actions when you are least aware? Next, we will turn to the silent presence, the observer behind the scenes. When you forget yourself, who's actually watching? Who is steering when your hands fall from the wheel? The puzzle deepens, and the comfort of certainty slips further away. There are moments, subtle and brief, when you sense the familiar contours of your identity slipping away. The week's weight settles in. Your thoughts fragment, your focus scatters, and the drive that once pushed you forward now sputters in silence. It's as if, just as you reach for clarity, something within you turns down the volume and blurs the edges. In these moments, when you are least yourself, a strange presence can be felt. A silent watcher, standing just outside the circle of your awareness. Now that you've caught the pattern, ask. When your mind goes blank and your drive dies, who's actually perceiving your choices? Is there a hidden observer sabotaging the script? This sense of being observed, even in your emptiest hours, is not paranoia. It's a quiet truth, woven into the fabric of consciousness. Ancient philosophies and cutting-edge science alike suggest that attention is never truly absent. When you lose the thread of your intentions, something remains, quietly recording, quietly witnessing. Is it possible that, even as your conscious self flickers and fades, another level of mind is present, watching, waiting, perhaps even intervening? The pattern repeats. As you slip from clarity into confusion, your hands still move, your body still acts, your life continues. Decisions are made, words are spoken, but the sense of agency is absent. It's as if a stand-in takes the stage, reading lines from a script you never approved. In the space between intention and action, an unknown observer steps forward, quietly assuming control. Who is this witness and what does it want? The more you notice these gaps, the moments when you wake up to realize you've been on autopilot, the more the question sharpens. Are you the sum of your thoughts, or the watcher of your thoughts? Is the true self the one who decides, or the one who observes decisions happening? This subtle, unsettling distinction is the doorway to the heart of the mystery. Throughout the week, especially during the midweek crash, you may find yourself watching your own actions with a detached curiosity. It's as if your life is a movie, and you are both actor and audience, both subject and object. This split is not a sign of dysfunction. It is a clue. When willpower vanishes, when motivation recedes, the observer steps forward, a presence that is both you and not you, both intimate and utterly strange. Quantum theory suggests that the act of observation itself alters reality. The very presence of an observer changes the outcome of an experiment, collapses probability into certainty. In the same way, your own observer mind may be shaping the unfolding of your life in ways you barely perceive. When your conscious self loses control, when willpower crumbles and the familiar sense of self recedes, is it possible that a deeper, less visible presence takes over, steering you through the unknown? This hidden observer is not neutral. Sometimes, it seems to work against your stated intentions, nudging you toward habits you thought you'd left behind, quietly sabotaging your progress. Other times, it is a witness only, recording each failure and misstep with silent attention. Its motives are unclear, its methods invisible, but it is always there, shaping the narrative from behind the scenes. When the observer overrides the actor, when you are both present and absent, you are forced to confront the reality that selfhood is not a singular, stable thing. You are a multitude, a constellation of impulses and intentions, watched over by a silent mind that exists just outside the spotlight. The crash of confidence, then, is not just a personal failure. It is a stage in the ongoing negotiation between the parts of you that act and the parts that watch, the performer and the audience, the script and the one who reads it. Are you being sabotaged by your own observer? Is the witness within you helping or hindering your progress? Or is the very act of being watched, even by yourself, enough to change the way you live? The paradox deepens, and the answers remain hidden. As this mystery unfolds, the next question arises from the shadows. Now that you're aware of the hidden watcher, you're faced with an even stranger glitch in reality. If you're finally aware, why do you keep relapsing into old habits? Are you stuck in a loop you can't see? Or is someone rerunning your code without your consent? Next, we will enter the labyrinth of quantum loops, where awareness itself cannot always break the cycle, and the old patterns return with haunting precision. The days gather behind you, stringing together into a narrative that feels, on the surface, like progress. Patterns seem exposed, lessons learned, self-awareness heightened. Yet, a strange law asserts itself. No matter how many times you resolve to change, no matter how bright your intentions burn, the same mistakes quietly find their way back into your life. The discomfort runs deep. If you're finally aware, why do you keep relapsing into old habits? Are you stuck in a loop you can't see? Or is someone rerunning your code without your consent? Each new cycle begins with hope. You tell yourself, this time will be different. Your mind is sharp, your resolve feels steel-strong, and the urge to repeat the past seems almost laughably distant. But as the hours pass, as life's subtle triggers nudge you from the sides, you sense a familiar gravity pulling you back. It's almost as if your choices are not entirely your own, as if you are walking a path set down long before your conscious mind caught up. You feel yourself replaying not just actions, but entire scripts, complete with the same rationalizations and regrets. This recurrence is not laziness, nor is it a failure of discipline. There's something more haunting at work, a glitch in the fabric of intention, a quantum loop that resets the simulation when you're not looking. The habits you most want to break become the ones that most stubbornly return. You see the pattern clearly, yet find yourself moving through it as if guided by an invisible conductor, compelled to repeat the sequence down to its tiniest detail. In quantum physics, particles can fall into loops, endlessly repeating paths unless disrupted by some force from outside the system. The mind seems to work in much the same way, trapped in feedback cycles that reinforce themselves with each repetition. The more aware you become of your own patterns, the more trapped you can feel inside them, like a lucid dreamer unable to wake. Your awareness, which you thought would be your savior, becomes its own paradox. Seeing the loop doesn't always release you from it. You watch yourself reaching for the same distractions, making the same promises, indulging the same doubts. You see yourself rerunning code you desperately wish to rewrite. The observer you met before becomes a reluctant witness to this repetition, its presence both a comfort and a curse. Who or what is pressing play on this internal movie, dragging you back to Act 1 again and again? It's tempting to look for external villains, circumstances, pressures, the influence of others. Yet the loop feels intimately your own, nested deep within the architecture of your mind. It's as if your consciousness is a labyrinth built from the bricks of old experience, and you are condemned to wander its hallways, passing the same doors, peering through the same windows, always hoping for an exit that never comes. But what if the repetition is not simply a flaw, but a clue? In physics, a loop often marks a point of instability, a region where the rules break down and a new reality is possible. Could your relapses signal a place where the story of you is weakest, most ripe for rewriting? Or is there another player, a hidden hand, a coder in the shadows, resetting the simulation just when you think you're about to escape? You try to outwit the cycle, laying traps for your old habits, leaving notes for your future self. Sometimes it works for a while, sometimes the pattern bends. But all too often, you find yourself back at the beginning, the observer shaking its head as you walk through the same door for the 1000th time. The pain of this realization is sharp, but it carries its own strange beauty. The very act of witnessing the loop changes its texture, making you both prisoner and detective, both the mouse and the maze. So you're left with a question that gnaws at the edges of every attempt at self-mastery. If knowing isn't enough to break free, then what is? Are you living inside a story written by someone or something else, forced to repeat the errors of your past until a new player intervenes? Or is your own mind the architect, building and rebuilding the same cage out of habit and fear? The tension grows. You sense the presence of a larger pattern, a meta loop that encompasses not just your actions, but your very efforts to change. The more you push, the more the system resists, as if the universe itself prefers you looping, prefers you restless, keeps you spinning in the hopes you'll notice the rules, not just the results. You become the watcher, the participant, the unwitting actor in a play that is both your own and utterly foreign. You try to map the escape to find the secret door. Some days you almost do. The loop flickers. You glimpse a new possibility. But then, the old gravity reasserts itself, and the script continues. And here, the paradox reveals itself fully. The more you see, the less certain you become. Your self-awareness, far from granting freedom, only multiplies the layers of the labyrinth. Every answer births more questions. Every insight spawns 2 fresh doubts. Now that you're staring down your patterns, another mystery appears, more disorienting than any loop. Why does every attempt to understand yourself create more confusion? Like every answer spawns 2 new doubts. Is self-awareness the key to freedom, or a hall of mirrors that multiplies your uncertainty? The mirror stands before you, reflecting 1,000 versions of yourself, each one both familiar and strange. Next, we will wander the labyrinth of the mirror paradox, where every step toward understanding seems to take you further from certainty, and where the act of self-examination itself becomes the greatest riddle of all. The journey inward, begun with such hope and clarity, takes a sudden turn into fog. Each loop you spot, each habit you catch, brings not relief but a strange new confusion. You stand before the mirror of self-awareness, expecting answers, only to watch the questions multiply with every glance. Now that you're staring down your patterns, why does every attempt to understand yourself create more confusion? Like every answer spawns 2 new doubts? The old idea that knowledge is power begins to crumble. You see yourself more clearly than ever, yet the clarity does not deliver the expected comfort. Instead, each insight throws light on hidden corners you didn't know existed. The act of understanding yourself becomes an endless hall of mirrors, where every reflection reveals new distortions, new uncertainties, new shadows. It is unsettling. The tools you hoped would lead to mastery, reflection, introspection, analysis become sources of greater doubt. You peer into the mirror expecting to find a single, coherent self, only to discover a swarm of possibilities. Which one is the real you? The confident version, the anxious one, the dreamer, the critic, the observer? Or are you a shifting chorus of selves, none more real than the others? The more you seek answers, the deeper the paradox grows. Each revelation splits into further mysteries. You fix one flaw only to notice three more. You clarify a pattern only to watch it morph into something unrecognizable. The journey begins to feel infinite, recursive, and dizzying. Understanding yourself becomes not a straight road but a spiral staircase, one that winds forever upward without ever quite reaching the top. You try to rest in the comfort of labels: introvert, extrovert, achiever, procrastinator, empath, thinker, but the mirror reflects your attempts back as inadequate. The mind resists simple categories. Your identity flickers, shifting with context, mood, memory, even with the mere act of observation. Each time you think you have arrived at the truth, the ground shifts, and the image in the mirror wavers. This experience is not unique. Many who seek self-knowledge discover that the deeper they go, the less they understand. The mirror does not reveal a single, consistent self, but a cloud of probabilities, each one shaped by the questions you ask, the memories you recall, and the beliefs you hold most dear. You become both the observer and the observed, caught in a dance that never quite resolves into stillness. Quantum mechanics, with its indeterminacy and superposition, offers a haunting parallel. The more you measure, the more the system changes. The more you seek certainty, the more uncertainty grows. The observer cannot separate from the observed. In trying to grasp the whole, you only disturb the pattern. Self-awareness, once seen as the path to mastery, becomes a hall of mirrors, each surface reflecting your gaze in infinite directions. Doubt grows not just about your choices, but about the very act of choosing. If the self is not fixed, then who is doing the knowing? Who is the subject, and who is the object? Is the observer another mask, another actor in the drama? Or is there a deeper reality waiting behind the glass? You search for a core, a center, an unchanging truth, but the mirror always reflects something different. A moving target, a flickering signal, an identity in constant motion. Yet, within the confusion, something important stirs. The loss of certainty is not failure, but the birth of wonder. The old story of the self, solid, singular, predictable, begins to dissolve, making room for a new understanding. You are not one thing but many, not a statue but a symphony. The confusion is not a trap, but a signal that you are nearing the boundary between old assumptions and new realities. Still, the mind craves resolution. You ache for something solid, something you can hold. But each attempt to grasp the truth only multiplies the questions. The journey continues, restless and unresolved. With every failed attempt to regain control, another question flickers at the edge of your awareness. What if the version of you you're fighting to become isn't even stable? Are you chasing a hologram, or is your identity actually a moving target? Next, we will follow the thread into identity drift, where the real you is never quite the same from one moment to the next, and where certainty, like confidence, becomes the rarest particle in the universe. In the restless quiet after the mirror's revelations, you notice something even more subtle and disquieting. Beneath every layer of analysis, behind every attempt to hold yourself still, your sense of identity pulses and shifts. Like an image projected onto water, the real you never quite settles into focus. With every failed attempt to regain control, what if the version of you you're fighting to become isn't even stable? Are you chasing a hologram, or is your identity actually a moving target? You watch as your moods rearrange the very structure of who you believe yourself to be. What felt certain in the morning is questioned by noon. The words you spoke with conviction yesterday sound foreign tonight. A memory, a song, a stranger's glance. Any of these can knock your self-image off its axis, sending you into a quiet spiral of reevaluation. Sometimes the shifts are subtle. Other times, they are so profound you wonder if you've always been someone else entirely. All your efforts to pin down a single, authentic self begin to feel like chasing the horizon. The closer you get, the more it recedes. Every attempt to find yourself turns up only partial truths, masks that shift with circumstance, identities that bloom and fade with the changing light. The phrase, "be yourself," unravels under scrutiny. If you are always changing, who is there to be? It is tempting to see this as failure, as if stability were the only mark of authenticity. Yet, quantum theory hints at a different story. Particles are not where you expect them to be. Their very existence is described by probabilities, by waves of potential that only collapse into certainty when measured. Could identity be the same, more a field of shifting possibilities than a single, permanent presence? You may recall moments when your actions shocked you, when you behaved in ways that seemed utterly alien. That wasn't me, you might say, and yet it was. Or was it? The flickering of self grows more pronounced when you notice how easily your core can be disrupted. Stress, joy, novelty, fatigue, each can rewire your sense of who you are, if only for a heartbeat. The more you watch this dance, the less interested you become in labels and categories. Instead, you begin to notice the rhythm of your own fluctuations, the silent drift that carries you through countless micro-identities in a single day. Who, then, is the observer of all this change? If the real you is never stable, who keeps track of the shifting mask? Or is the observer simply another mask, more subtle than the rest, yet just as impermanent? At first, this instability can be unsettling. It threatens the comfort of a singular self, the reassurance of a story with a consistent protagonist. But as the drift becomes familiar, a strange peace emerges. The horizon no longer taunts you. The fluidity of your identity becomes a kind of freedom, an openness to possibility. You are not bound by a single story, but alive in the endless emergence of new ones. Yet questions remain. Is there a cost to this flickering? If your sense of self is never fixed, how do you sustain direction, loyalty, or trust? How do you commit, persist, endure, when the one making the promises is never quite the same? The modern world demands constancy, even as your nature betrays you. The paradox sharpens. To survive, you must adapt. To adapt, you must change. But to change, you must let go of the very anchor that once defined you. You become an explorer on a sea of probabilities, never certain which island you'll land on next. Each decision, each thought, each word is a roll of the dice. A quantum leap that sets you down in a new configuration, a new story. The old hope for a solid, final self gives way to a deeper wonder at the play of possibility. Even as you begin to accept the drift, another, darker current reveals itself. Beneath the surface of these shifting selves, there is a hidden economy at work. Something or someone seems to profit from the chaos. Each time your confidence vanishes, each time your identity flickers, a subtle transaction takes place, invisible yet undeniable. Now that you see yourself is unstable, ask, if your confidence vanishes midweek, who or what benefits? Is there an invisible economy trading on your collapse? Next, we will expose the forces at play behind the scenes, peering into the hidden marketplace where the value of your confidence is measured, traded, and sometimes stolen when you're not looking. In the dim corridors of the week, as your confidence sputters and your identity drifts, a new suspicion grows. This isn't random. Your collapse, so precise and so costly, feels orchestrated. An event with consequences beyond your own struggles. Now that you see yourself is unstable, ask, if your confidence vanishes midweek, who or what benefits? Is there an invisible economy trading on your collapse? Every loss has a beneficiary. In nature, the death of one thing feeds another. In markets, your failure is someone else's opportunity. So what about the internal markets, the ones that operate quietly without your awareness, deep in the backrooms of your mind? Who profits from your moments of weakness, your lapses in will, your repeated return to the familiar cage? You begin to notice how, at the very moment your energy wanes, the world rushes in to offer substitutes. Distractions multiply, consumption spikes. You reach for comfort food, social media, mindless scrolling, tools perfectly designed to monetize your uncertainty. The digital landscape is rich with predators, algorithms that feed on your lack of direction, transforming your attention into data, your anxiety into profit. It is not paranoia. It is the machinery of the modern world, tuned to exploit the moment your confidence falters. But the economy of collapse is not just external. Inside, ancient patterns come alive. Old fears, dormant all week, sense their chance to grow. Habits you thought defeated find new energy in your exhaustion. The subconscious, a master at resource allocation, floods your mind with distractions, memories, and doubts, each vying for your dwindling attention. These internal actors, too, benefit from your loss of self. They gain power, reclaim territory, reset the old scripts you struggled to erase. The invisible marketplace hums with activity. Every ounce of lost confidence becomes a resource, traded for comfort, for escape, for the illusion of control. Even as you mourn your lost strength, parts of you are bargaining in the shadows, making deals you never approved, seeking solace at the cost of your own progress. Is this economy natural? Is it the inevitable outcome of living in a world designed to commodify attention? Or is it a deeper law, a principle embedded in the architecture of mind, ensuring that every collapse is balanced by someone else's gain? You look around and see it everywhere. Companies thrive on your moments of doubt, designing products and experiences that target you precisely when your confidence wavers. Relationships shift too. The dynamics of power, support, and dependence all recalibrate when you falter. In these moments, someone always moves in to fill the vacuum. An idea, an addiction, a person, a system. The game is rigged to capitalize on your uncertainty. Yet not all of these forces are sinister. Some are simply the currents of a living system, balancing out excess, resetting the cycle. The collapse point, though painful, may serve as a pressure release, a necessary break in the chain of self-importance, a clearing of the ground for something new. But the question remains: is your confidence being siphoned away for your own evolution, or simply harvested by others for their gain? This awareness is both a burden and a key. When you see the economy at work, you can begin to reclaim your value. You become less likely to surrender your attention, less quick to trade your energy for fleeting comfort. The system is still rigged, but you are no longer its most willing participant. And yet, just as you begin to map this hidden marketplace, you stumble upon another mystery. If your value is being traded in the shadows, what else is happening in the blind spots of your focus? You sense that every collapse, every distraction, is a cover for something more, a truth hiding just out of reach, protected by the very mechanisms that steal your attention. You know someone profits from your loss of self, so what's happening in the blind spots of your attention? What vital truths hide behind every midweek distraction? Next, we will step into the neural smokescreen, searching for the realities that remain hidden precisely because your mind is looking the other way, and asking if what you miss is actually the most valuable thing of all. You sense the pattern, each collapse, each drift of confidence, each profit made at your expense. But something remains obscured, veiled just beyond the reach of conscious thought. The mind, built for both clarity and concealment, is a master illusionist, drawing your attention to one place while orchestrating its true work in another. You know someone profits from your loss of self, so what's happening in the blind spots of your attention? What vital truths hide behind every midweek distraction? There are moments when you catch yourself, mid-scroll, deep in distraction, startled by the realization that entire minutes, even hours, have slipped by unnoticed. You can remember starting, but the rest is fog, a gap in the story of your day. This is the neural smokescreen, your mind's exquisite ability to divert, conceal, and redirect the very force of your awareness. It doesn't just happen to you. It happens in you, through you, as if consciousness itself has developed survival mechanisms to hide certain realities from view. The world outside is crowded with distractions engineered to capture your gaze, but these only work because they resonate with something already inside. A primal desire to escape discomfort, uncertainty, or pain. When midweek arrives and confidence wanes, the urge to seek out mental anesthesia becomes almost irresistible. The phone lights up, a snack calls your name, a daydream pulls you under, and each of these, while seemingly trivial, forms a dense fog that conceals not just pain, but also potential. Ask yourself, what goes unnoticed in these moments? What patterns play out in the background when your attention is deliberately scattered? The neural smokescreen is not only an evasion, it is a signal. Something important is happening. Something your conscious mind has learned, perhaps for years, to avoid. Scientists speak of attentional blindness, the way we miss the obvious when our focus is carefully directed elsewhere. In one famous experiment, participants were asked to count basketball passes in a video. In the midst of their task, a person in a gorilla suit strolled through the scene, unnoticed by most viewers. The lesson is stark. You see what you expect to see. The rest, no matter how outrageous, becomes invisible. Your life works the same way. The smokescreen isn't just a product of the modern world. It's an ancient survival strategy. Your mind learned to protect you by hiding the full scope of reality, offering manageable fragments instead of the overwhelming whole. But in this well-meaning edit, you lose sight of what matters most. The roots of your confidence crash, the deep causes of your patterns, the origins of your dissatisfaction. All are masked by the swirl of trivial distraction. Midweek, this fog thickens. Just when you might glimpse the true reasons for your struggles, a barrage of interruptions sweeps in. You answer emails that don't matter, engage in conversations that go nowhere, and retreat into old comforts. The deeper questions: who is steering your life? What values drive you? What pain are you avoiding? Remain unasked. The smokescreen wins again, not by defeating you directly, but by convincing you that there's nothing more to see. But what if the blind spot itself is a clue? What if every moment of distraction, every urge to look away, is a marker placed by your unconscious mind? A signal that something vital waits in the shadows. The things you avoid may be the most important truths of all. Old wounds that have yet to heal, desires you're afraid to own, capabilities you barely allow yourself to imagine. To pierce the neural smokescreen is not easy. It requires a willingness to notice when you are avoiding, to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, to let the fog settle instead of chasing the next hit of stimulation. In this quiet, you may find yourself confronting truths that hurt, but also truths that liberate. The greatest insights are often those you spend the most time avoiding. The things hidden in the blind spots of attention are rarely trivial. They are the pivot points of transformation, the unclaimed inheritance of your growth. And yet, there is a risk. The act of looking directly at what you have hidden from yourself can destabilize, confuse, even frighten. The mind has reasons for its smokescreens, reasons born of old survival needs. But you are no longer living in those old battles. You have outgrown the smokescreen, even as it clings to you. As you begin to part the fog, something even stranger emerges. You realize that your very act of self-inquiry, your attempts to change your story, begin to affect the shape of your reality. It is as if, by looking at the hidden mechanisms, you change the mechanisms themselves. The world outside wavers, the plotlines twist, the familiar becomes strange. Now that you've glimpsed the hidden hand behind your focus, why does rewriting your internal narrative make reality itself glitch? Are you seeing cracks in the simulation, or is something rewriting you in real time? Next, we will step into the hall of timeline tampering, where your attempts to rewrite your own script ripple outwards, warping the boundaries of what is real and what is only possible. It begins almost imperceptibly. You change your mind, rewrite a narrative, choose a new belief, and reality itself seems to tremble. The faces around you respond differently. Opportunities appear or vanish. Even your sense of the past subtly reshapes. Now that you've glimpsed the hidden hand behind your focus, why does rewriting your internal narrative make reality itself glitch? Are you seeing cracks in the simulation, or is something rewriting you in real time? The question lingers with an electric tension. You notice that the world is not as fixed as you believed. Each shift in your self-story creates a ripple, a distortion field that alters not just your mood, but the events, relationships, and even the facts you thought were anchored in certainty. This isn't just a trick of perception. It is as if the very timeline you inhabit responds to the act of editing your personal myth. Psychologists call this the reminiscence bump. When you reframe old memories, the emotional content, even the meaning of past events, shifts in the present. In quantum theory, it's the observer effect. The act of observation not only changes the outcome, but retroactively defines the history that leads to that outcome. What you believe about yourself doesn't just shape your future. It seems to reach back, coloring the path that led you here. You notice the synchronicities. A long-lost friend contacts you on the very day you decide to forgive the past. A new idea opens doors you never knew existed. The world feels less like a solid structure, more like a set of possibilities, each one unlocked by the stories you tell about who you are. But the effect is not always gentle. When you try to make big changes, overhauling an identity, letting go of a core belief, the timeline itself seems to rebel. Obstacles multiply. Old patterns intensify before dissolving. Reality glitches. You lose your keys, appointments shift, the familiar becomes uncanny. You sense, with a chill, that something does not want you to break the script. The universe or the subconscious resists radical edits. Is this simply the inertia of habit, or is it something deeper? Are you, in trying to rewrite your story, actually tampering with the code that binds your personal reality together? Does every change in narrative create a fork, a branching path where new outcomes await? Or is the timeline itself conscious, shaping itself to test your resolve? Some traditions have long held that reality is participatory, that we are not just products of circumstance but co-creators of the field we inhabit. Quantum physics, with its probabilistic universe, echoes this: reality does not exist in a fixed state until you look. Your gaze, your narrative, pulls one possibility out of the void and makes it real. But this power comes with a paradox. The more you change, the more the timeline shivers. New anxieties arise, new responsibilities appear, new versions of yourself call out for attention. The act of transformation is exhilarating, but it is also destabilizing. The foundation rocks beneath your feet, demanding that you find new ways to orient, to anchor, to navigate the shifting maze. You sense the cost. Old anchors fall away, familiar certainties dissolve. The people and patterns that supported your old identity may not fit the new one. The more you rewrite, the lonelier the journey can become, until you find, at last, new fellow travelers on your chosen path. Reality is not a solid thing. It is a conversation, a negotiation between the observer and the observed, the story and the storyteller. When you choose a new narrative, you do not simply add a coat of paint to the old structure. You tear out walls, install new windows, sometimes even burn the whole thing down. The world bends, the timeline splits, the simulation glitches. This is the price of true transformation. You must accept that reality itself is always in flux, and that your story is both the anchor and the storm. And just as you start to acclimate to the thrill and terror of timeline tampering, a new tension reveals itself. If you've discovered the code behind your patterns, why does every upgrade trigger more anxiety? Are you actually breaking free, or being lured deeper into a paradoxical prison? Next, we will step into the unsettling realm of upgrade dissonance, where every step toward growth carries with it an echo of unease, and every new possibility doubles as a new uncertainty. The myth is simple and seductive. Growth brings relief, confidence, certainty. Each breakthrough should quiet the doubts, silence the fears, bring the calm you've always craved. But reality offers a harsher riddle. The further you push, the deeper you question, the more you change, the more anxiety sharpens its edge. The paradox stings. If you've discovered the code behind your patterns, why does every upgrade trigger more anxiety? Are you actually breaking free, or being lured deeper into a paradoxical prison? The journey of self-transformation carries with it an unforeseen toll. After the rush of clarity, the high of new insight, a kind of dissonance fills the space left behind by old certainties. You watch yourself outgrowing habits, rewiring beliefs, untangling narratives that shaped your life for years. You celebrate the victories, mark the milestones. But underneath, a new anxiety gnaws, a sense of exposure, of standing unprotected at the border of the unknown. This is not the anxiety of failure. It is the anxiety of change. Each time you level up, an old version of you dies. The comfort of familiar flaws, the shelter of well-worn excuses, the ballast of old limitations, all are cast off in the name of growth. But the new self, the one you fought so hard to reach, does not arrive fully formed. It trembles, uncertain, its boundaries still porous. In this liminal state, you are both more powerful and more fragile than ever before. You realize that your former prison was, in its own way, safe. The routines that kept you stuck were also buffers against the chaos of possibility. Now, with the cage door wide open, the world feels vast, unstable, alive with risk. Every choice carries greater weight. Every success threatens to unravel another layer of comfort. This is upgrade dissonance, the disquiet that shadows every transformation, the low hum of dread that arises not from lack, but from abundance. You try to trust the process. You remind yourself that growth is good, that discomfort is a sign of progress. But the anxiety remains, defying logic, immune to reassurance. It shows up in your body. Tight shoulders, restless nights, a racing mind. It colors your thoughts, seeding doubts in every new idea, every bold plan. The self that once longed for change now hesitates, caught between old attachments and new aspirations. You begin to question, is this what freedom feels like? Or is there a deeper pattern at work, a hidden trap set by the very drive for improvement? The more you seek to level up, the more the ground shifts beneath you. The pursuit of mastery becomes a hall of shifting mirrors, each reflection more distorted than the last. In the quantum world, systems resist sudden change. Particles leap between energy states, but the transitions are unpredictable, chaotic. Your own psyche behaves in much the same way. Growth is not a gentle ascent, but a series of abrupt dislocations. The old self clings, fights, sabotages. The new self shivers, unsure, untested. The system oscillates, never quite settling, always teetering on the edge of a new collapse. This is the price of transformation. Every gain is shadowed by a loss. Every upgrade exposes a vulnerability. The things you once blamed for your anxiety, ignorance, inertia, weakness, fade, replaced by subtler sources. You are anxious not because you are broken, but because you are changing. The future is wider, but also darker. The unknown stretches in all directions. With each upgrade, the stakes grow higher, the possibilities more dizzying. And so you wonder, is it possible that the pursuit of growth itself is a kind of trap? That every new skill, every new awareness, tightens the knot rather than loosening it? Are you breaking free, or only weaving a more intricate prison out of your own expectations? The freedom you sought now feels suspect, tinged with unease, haunted by the suspicion that there is no outside to escape to, only deeper layers of the maze. Still, you move forward. Growth is irreversible. Each time you step out of the old shell, there is no way back. The anxiety remains, but so does the curiosity, the drive to see what lies beyond the next threshold. You begin to accept that discomfort is not a flaw, but a sign that you are alive, awake, evolving. Yet, beneath all the striving, a more profound question arises. If every upgrade multiplies your anxieties, what happens when you finally break the last illusion? When the observer itself, the one who has watched and guided every transformation, begins to dissolve? What is left when there is no self to level up, no story to rewrite, no watcher to oversee the game? Now that you've broken the pattern and the illusion shatters, what's left when the observer itself dissolves? Is there a core, or is your deepest self an empty frame? Next, we will cross into the territory of observer collapse, where the very mechanism of selfhood begins to break down, and the question of who remains becomes the only one that matters. There comes a moment in the labyrinth when all your strategies fail. The loops you traced, the patterns you mapped, the observer you trusted to make sense of it all, each begins to falter, then unravel. The story you told about yourself, the growth you pursued, the suffering you analyzed, they crumble into silence. Now that you've broken the pattern and the illusion shatters, what's left when the observer itself dissolves? Is there a core, or is your deepest self an empty frame? You notice it first in moments of stillness. The mind, exhausted from its efforts, releases its grip. Thoughts flicker and fade. The narratives that once defined you lose their power, their urgency. What remains is a strange spaciousness, both empty and full, as if the boundaries of self have become translucent, permeable, open to something vaster than thought. You search for the observer, the inner witness, the ever-present watcher, but find only echoes, fragments, the residue of old habits. The gaze turns inward, expecting a steady presence, but encounters only open sky. The one who watched is gone, or never existed as you imagined. What remains is awareness itself, unanchored, unclaimed, free of identity. The mind resists. It scrambles to reconstruct a story, to rebuild the scaffolding of selfhood. Memories flood in, emotions surge, the machinery of identity stirs from sleep. But each attempt to regain the old position fails. The observer collapses, not in defeat, but in revelation. The watcher was always a fiction, a function, a point of reference in a field that needs none. In this emptiness, fear rises. If there is no core, no steady observer, what holds you together? What guides your choices? What gives your life meaning? The world feels both sharper and more distant, intimate yet alien. You are present, but not as a person, not as a story, not as a fixed point. You are a field of awareness, rippling, shifting, responsive to every moment, but bound to none. The paradox stuns. The collapse of the observer is not an ending, but a beginning. The self, so long defended, turns out to be a process, not a possession. The boundaries you clung to dissolve, revealing a space that contains everything and nothing at once. You grieve for the loss of solidity, but sense a freedom beyond all previous freedom, a release from the endless labor of holding yourself together. Questions swarm in the silence. If the observer was only ever a function of mind, who or what remains when it is gone? Is there a deeper self, a hidden core, or only this boundless, objectless awareness? Are you a drop returning to the ocean, or the ocean discovering itself as every drop? The world goes on. You move, speak, act, but now without the constant commentary, without the ceaseless watcher. Life becomes lighter, less personal, more mysterious. The need to control, to analyze, to improve relaxes its grip. You are lived as much as you live. The dance continues, but the dancer is gone. And yet, this emptiness is not a void. It is alive, alert, infinitely receptive. Every sound, every sight, every feeling is welcome here. There is no division between inside and outside, self and other, watcher and watched. The collapse of the observer does not erase you. It reveals a deeper belonging, a kinship with everything that is. Still, the old habits return. The mind tries to rebuild its fortress. But the illusion cannot fully reassemble. Once glimpsed, the emptiness behind the observer never quite disappears. It remains, a silent witness to the witness, a background of spaciousness in which all experience unfolds. Now, the final paradox awaits. With everything you thought you were gone, what happens if the ultimate confidence is letting go of identity itself? Are you finally free? Or did the game just change rules when you weren't looking? Next, we will enter the territory of the quantum reset, where the only way to win may be to surrender the need to play at all, and where the freedom you sought emerges not from self-mastery, but from letting go entirely.